Gori, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Good to see you, Rich. How are you?
Hey, mate. Very well, thank you. Very well. Hey,
Good.
Gori, and thanks for joining us. So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 9th episode of the 6 sessions and the last to roll out of January. I can't believe we're at the end of January already. That's for something that feels like it's taking a long time to move along in lockdown. We've actually kind of rifled through the month pretty quickly. Each week, I've been lucky enough to chat with someone in the growth space across marketing, sales, and CX. Today's guest is all about the learning, growing people and businesses. I've been super keen to get into this one ever since he agreed to join me, which was weeks ago, and you've left me hanging until that point. So I'm ready for this. I'm amped up for it. He exemplifies the principles of the 6 sessions, or principle of the 6 sessions. Me hanging out with someone smarter, more interesting, and making that an interesting process, or me at least trying to show off that I know smart people. These chats are designed to be short and sweet, but hopefully full of insight, and it's definitely unfiltered, which makes it fun. Today's guest is a serial entrepreneur, which you would assume means he knows a thing or two about growth, right? So, and what about when you throw in learning and social impact programs for the likes of Google, Samsung, Lloyds Bank, and BT? Today's guest, Gori Yahaya. Yeah, geez, I've just stumbled over my words throughout the whole thing. Gori Yahaya, sorry, mate, knows growth, growing businesses, but more importantly, helping people grow. He's notched up tons of awards in the digital and learning and social impact space, and he's self-professed evangelical advocate for the diversity and inclusion. He's also on a mission to support people of minority ethnic backgrounds, boosting progression and helping develop relevant skills in the future workplace. He's not just making a difference here in the UK, but also across Europe, Africa, and Asia. In short, the man knows growth, and he's helping others to grow too. Gori, welcome.
Thanks for the introduction, and I'm glad my name caught you off there. It's always fun that way. Look, as long as it makes you smile, that's the most important thing. No, thanks for having us.
Do you know what? Like, I'm not even trying to blow smoke up your ass here, but that's the first time I've written one of these introductions, and it's legitimately turned me into a fanboy as I'm writing, like my own words. And I'm like, wow, he's pretty impressive, actually. He's doing some cool shit.
We're having fun doing it. Yeah. But no, pleasure to be on here.
Good. So first up, we've pretty much notched off the first month in 2021. Wasn't as kind of total different as 2020 as everybody was hoping, and there were some bumps in the road already. But how's the year gone so far?
It started off on a high, actually. I was quite fortunate. I brought in a newborn end of the last year, so it's been quite an amazing start to the year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. 2020, what a year to be born in, I guess. But it's really interesting. You know, I keep hearing a lot of this Q5 2020 sort of flying around, which means people are just sort of feeling it dragging in. And it will feel like that because we're back in, we're in lockdown again, and it is a bit of a struggle mentally. But yeah, especially when the start of the year, people have a lot of that excitement for, new year, new me, new this. So it's been a slow start, but I feel, February is going to be a lot different as people feel comfortable with what the rest of the year is going to look like.
How long did you last into dry January?
I be honest with you, I never do dry January, to be honest. I think for me, I'm not a big drinker anyway, so it's not too difficult. I don't put that kind of pressure on myself. It's not worth it.
Yeah, my wife and I made it right up until they closed schools again.
Fair play. Good reason to get back on it.
So talk me through UpSkill Digital. What's the main business? What do you do?
Yeah, so we build learning and social impact programs. What does that mean? Essentially, clients come to us when they're looking to help their employees adopt new technologies or really get more comfortable with the tech that they've rolled out across the organization. So you hear a lot about digital transformation, where you want to train your teams up on new products, new systems, so on and so forth. We do a lot of that. We also help a lot of businesses with social impact programs. So that's where we are, where a business or an organization is committed to supporting a particular group, be it a marginalized group, be it businesses. We help them build scalable programs to either provide learning or education or a way to drive and empower those individuals as well. So we build those programs at scale. We can do it quite quickly, and yeah, pretty much that's the core of what we do.
So UpSkill is about helping people develop relevant skills for the future workplace. generally speaking, what are those skills and how do you ensure those skills are kept in line with what the industry needs? So basically, how do you keep ahead of the future needs?
Well, what is interesting is, especially what the pandemic kind of threw into the mix, is this need for reskilling and people to really realize that the skills that they think they have, that got them to where they are now, might need to change to adapt to what's changing out in the marketplace right now. So how we define what's needed, typically it's our clients that are coming up with new roles that need new skills, or roles that they have people in that they need to be upskilled on because they've got new technologies or new tools, or ways to ensure they can continue growth. So what we do is we typically work with clients to find out what it is that they need. And then we have a team of learning designers that build content that is easy to digest and easy to kind of get on board with. And we also have a network of digital experts, right? So they keep their finger on the pulse to work out what is new in the market. And they help us build those programs that essentially we put out there. And the pandemic kind of really shifted, people's views around what skills that they need. So, everything went remote, right? So you had salespeople that were on the ground, going out there doing great approaches to their selling, and now they all had to sell remotely. So good example of that would be, how do you use CRMs more effectively? How do you sell through virtual environments? You've got pub owners who, for example, now need to pivot through new services. So, we do a lot of training to businesses about how they can pivot, how they can innovate, how they can leverage platforms and e-commerce, for example. So it really does range. There's no one skill fits all. But there's definitely that need to identify where your market is shifting and what you might need to keep yourself at the forefront of it.
I don't think anybody can argue with the value in that and the need for it. And because I think I can't even count the amount of times I've read about pivots and people changing direction and all that kind of stuff in the last few months. What got you into it? Like, how did you end up in that space?
It's a bit of an eclectic journey. I've been, I guess my first working experience was in the States. I actually worked for a digital marketing agency there.
They're horrible things, those things.
Oh yeah, I know. You tell me all about it, mate. I really quite enjoyed the idea of building campaigns on digital platforms, like microsites, when they were microsites, simple, ways that people can engage in a particular product launch. And I used to spend a lot of time with the developers who were building these, and I loved the way they were building websites and just playing around with the tools. And there's so many things that you could play around with. So I actually taught myself a lot around how to build websites, how to market campaigns, a bit about social media, the early days. And when I moved back to the UK, did a stint working with a digital agency, started to do a little bit of work with Google for a little while. That's when I got into training. And back, we're talking about 2015 now, there was some interesting stats where I think it was only 30% of UK businesses actually had a website. And so few people felt the need to be online. We're only going back sort of 5, maybe six years or so. And that's where I felt it was a real opportunity there to support people's understanding of the power of digital, power of harnessing those tools to help you either drive growth for yourself, create new opportunities, become an entrepreneur, and just sort of be at the forefront of it. So yeah, I thought, why don't I just find a bunch of people who loved teaching, passionate about, getting their message across, and build a little network that I had, and then grew it into UpSkill. It was just, a team that can go out there and basically train. I found people who trusted me or mad enough to trust me on this mission. And yeah, so far we're still going, which is good.
So other than being the glamorous figurehead at the top of the company, what does your day-to-day do? Like, how are you personally driving growth?
Exploring international opportunities. I do a lot of that, working with people abroad and trying to work out what their needs are and where the market is shifting to see where we can support that. We have a network of about 300 odd coaches globally. So I work with the teams to try and grow that and find the right expertise that we need to be able to support particular markets. We do a lot of work in the inclusion space. That obviously it's been a personal passion of mine for obvious reasons, especially as an entrepreneur, even as a black belt.
What does that kind of work look like?
So we build programs that help businesses build more inclusive environments. So that either is educating managers on, how they can manage more diverse teams, how they can look at the way they approach performance reviews and make sure that they're being more inclusive in the way they approach that. I mean, I've just got a lot of friends who, have done very well in business, but end up hitting that glass ceiling. These are friends that are from sort of minority ethnic backgrounds and feel like they end up bouncing around businesses. So there's a huge opportunity to support people's education in that space. And we're actually building a number of programs to help businesses with that. Many businesses feel like they're a very early stage of, building more inclusive environments. So that is, again, as an individual that's been, working in some large businesses, but at the same time as being a Black founder, growing a business and seeing some barriers that I face, it's like, how do we help others really, take the tools and the skills and the advice that they could use to really, break through any glass ceilings.
Nice. So learning, training, diversity, inclusion. So to me, they would all be things that kind of signify growth in some way. So like personal growth, business growth. So where's that obsession? And I'm going to put words in your mouth and call it an obsession. Where's that obsession with growth come from?
I don't know. I think there's a bit of a calling. I have a sort of personal calling to, to make change and essentially just drive towards a better society. I think when I'm looking at growth, and apologies for the background noise, this is the world we live in right now. I just have this feeling that we, there's often that kind of hold back the mentality people have, which is that I'm very comfortable where I am. I can deal with what I have. I'm very comfortable with the expertise that I have, rather than thinking actually the world is changing around us. And, how do we input into that? What is our approach to ensuring that we can be much more in control of our own journey? A lot of people, especially when looking at careers, many people feel they don't, they want somebody else to lead their career a certain way. My manager will help promote me, or, I feel like me getting this funding opportunity is what's going to make the difference, as opposed to like actually the personal growth and taking the ownership that you need. And I don't know, I just feel maybe obsessed is a good way to think about it, right? I think the world it's becoming a much smaller place, based on globalization. I think there's so much more opportunity out there. So whatever you think is a good idea, let's find a way to help it scale, right? There's so many people you can touch with that.
So when you and I were kind of talking about doing this, and like I was digging into like your background, like your LinkedIn profile and all that kind of stuff, and finding out as much as I could about you, like the word mission kind of pops up quite a lot. Like you have this mission, you are trying to do this thing. How did you, and I'm asking you this for a personal reason for me. So one of the things I often grapple with is, what is my why? Like, what is my mission? Now I know that like I do the stuff at Six and Flow, and like it's not based on like financial gain. I'm not driven by money. That's not my driver at all. I'm driven by a desire to win, a desire to achieve, and to grow is effectively what makes it up. But I always struggle to articulate that back into a why, particularly a why that the team around me can understand and get behind as well. Because having a why of Rich wants to win isn't a team motivator at all. So how did you articulate your why? And I know one of the questions were totally off piste. How did you articulate your why? It's a big question for Friday afternoon, so I appreciate that.
No, but it's a good question to ask. Look, I feel for me, I often see problems, right? And those problems don't often have simple solutions. They're often quite complex. I look at systems. Let's take the barriers for career progression for Black individuals in business as an example, right? I look at broken systems. I feel there are issues with the way some corporates, for example, are set up that people often can't move through. And I feel, what do I have within my power to be able to support and hopefully solve that problem, right? And I can look into myself, and when I bring other people on the journey, I just try to explain the problem better. But I say, if I can explain to you where the challenge lies, then you can help me devise a really awesome solution, or at least a part of the solution, because we know it's complex. So we do a lot of work around social impact programs because there are a lot of challenges in the in the world, social injustices, digital divides. There are a load of challenges, and obviously you pick your battles, right? You pick the ones that you feel that you have the expertise and the resources to be able to to solve. And I guess with UpSkill, what I've tried to do is build a team of people that are really keen to solve some problems, right? And I think that's why personally I get excited by. Yeah. How do you get the mission across? I know I never do it right, but I do it in a way that that people can understand the problem better. And if they understand the problem better, that gives them a little bit of excitement as to how we can grow. The whole idea of scale, that's also just a personal obsession, which is that if you build something, build it right, it really can scale. Understand the levers that help it scale, and then you can help it reach there. But that's not, the mission isn't always about the scale, it's about solving that particular problem. So there are, I think the BBC was saying last year that over 200 million jobs worldwide are going to be lost because of COVID, which means a lot of people sitting around thinking what to do next and have never taken any almost formal education outside of just the schooling system, even if they went through that in the first place. So, and I think, how do they get access to, good learning to help them really take opportunities or create opportunities for themselves? And it's like, that's a problem that you have there. What can you build to help and get access to that? So that's kind of way that I reiterate with my mission. And fortunately, there are some larger organizations who believe in the same way, they like the same values, so they think, well, let's invest in that and let's see how we can grow it.
So there's actually a comment on here that says we need more people like Gori in our lives. I think that's a tick of a seal of approval. So I think where I've got to with mine is very much like it started out like I wanted to win, I wanted to compete, like I am competitive through and through. But over time it became, I wanted to build the best team, and I have built the best team, and like I'm excited about what they're building, and we have that shared goal and plan now. And I think I can feel my why. I just can't articulate it yet, but I'll let you know when I get there.
Yeah, do. I don't think anybody gets it that easily. It's not supposed to be easy, right? And also knowing that it changes over time, right? What's your why now might change over time. And you have to be open to that. You have to be open to that change, because if you get too glued to it, you might find, you get too lost in disappointment sometimes if you're not getting there quick enough. So yeah, it's a balance. That's how I deal with it.
So what excites you most about growth at the moment?
If I look at the moment and what the pandemic has done, it's really interesting. It's kind of been a bit of a reset button for many businesses, right? Many businesses that never really thought about either pivoting or thinking twice because they got comfortable, right? So what excites me is the opportunities that present themselves to lots of businesses, even to ours. I can't imagine that we're in a perfect trajectory right now. We're going to have our ups and downs, and last year it definitely was a bit of a rocky roller coaster. But I'm excited because there are lots of new products that are coming out in the market to help people grow. Right? It's a really interesting period. The same thing that happened after the sort of financial crisis, 2008, 2009. We saw some really interesting startups come out of that. I mean, all the big social networks that are, started to kind of expand came out of that. And I think now is a really interesting period to see new products, new platforms that are coming out that we can leverage to help ourselves reach more people, engage, grow ourselves, and also learn more that we can teach other people as well. So that's kind of it. This is why I think this period is really, it's, everyone should be paying very close attention to, to how we can leverage what's out there to help ourselves grow.
So I actually had, I don't know if you know Nathan Anubaba. So we had him on a couple of weeks back, and he runs a podcast, and I spoke to him at the beginning of like the first lockdown. And it was, we were talking about kind of, it was already at that point shaping up to be a wild year. And like there were agencies all over the place closing down, and that's the space that he works in. So he could see his customer base disappearing as well. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I said to him, I was like, it is going to be a rough period for at least 6 months. And like, little did I know it was going to be probably triple that. But like when we get to the other end of that, there will be an element of like, we will be stronger and fitter at the other end, because all of those businesses that were probably like growing in a fat sense, there was too much fat on the bone, were able to lean down. They had to focus on their processes. They had to do some of the big changes within their businesses just to survive. When we get out of the other end of it, we'll be fitter and stronger. obviously there's going to be a lot of kind of, it's horrible that there's a lot of businesses and people who are seriously struggling. The ones who survive will be in a good position, and the ones that don't, it means that they'll be able to fill, and like exactly with the kind of work that you're doing is helping them reskill. And it's been amazing the amount of businesses that I've seen, kind of like bedroom businesses that have popped up who are offering services that you were like, shit, why weren't we doing that before? So my daughter now does like a weekly, I think it's called Rainbows class, which they do, it's like brownies, but they've taken all that online, and like seeing all these different businesses pop out. That's the thing that's the positive I've taken out of the wild 12 months that we've gone through, is that it forced a bit of creativity. It forced us all to strengthen and kind of consolidate where we needed to so that we could grow out of that. So don't get me wrong, it's been a shit year, but also there are positives starting to come through with it. And that's the exciting bit for me.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, what's interesting and a huge shame as well, is there are a lot of businesses that really struggle to pivot or struggle to take those hard decisions because they had a level of intimidation towards tech and digital and platforms, and just even the idea of a pivot was something they never had to do before. Yeah. There are businesses that could even as they start to get warmed up with let me try to do e-commerce, right? Let me try to switch my business on. Retail took a massive hit, yeah. That level of intimidation meant that they felt slow to it. There's a huge amount of imposter syndrome, and inevitably they let a lot of stuff go and had lost almost all confidence in trying to run a business that would be online because they're so used to what they did before. So this is why it is a very harsh reset button for many businesses. And hopefully they like businesses like mine and many others out there are trying to provide that support, even if it's just more of a confidence boost, right? It's that you can do something differently. The world needs something different for all of us to be able to connect, for us to be able to get access to your services. And don't worry if there's someone that was already doing it and doing it amazingly, you can still jump into the space, right? And I think that is so crucial for us right now. It's that mentality that we have, which is that we're going through another roller coaster with, having to homeschool and look after all the other, and I've still got to make hard decisions about the business. But you're right, there will be some really amazing, again, bedroom businesses that pop up out of this, that will shape the future of how we engage and how we connect in the future. So it is an exciting time.
But the funny thing is as well, so we're using the term loosely, bedroom businesses. We are all like, I'm not making any judgments around kind of what's in it. I'm assuming you are in a bedroom and you are running a living room, but we are effectively running bedroom businesses because the tech that we've adopted allow us to have that global presence now. What I think it's done for like our business personally is we are now happily employing pretty much anywhere within a 5-hour time zone difference, because we know, and like as long as we can speak the same language, there's no language barrier and the time is close enough that we can make that work, then we'll hire anywhere. But the other thing that it's done is it has made us more global in the way that we approach doing business as well. So we've always done video calling and kind of sending out video outreach and using LinkedIn and stuff like that. So that's fine. But actually now people don't think twice about it anymore. It's opened up a lot of doors and a lot of opportunity, but I am still effectively running a bedroom business. There's just nearly 30 of us running that bedroom business.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, look, last year I was due to do, I think I had like 2 or 3 launches all outside of the UK. I had 2 launches happening across Africa, one in Ethiopia and one in Nigeria. Another one I was due to fly to Singapore. All these events and campaigns all ran virtually, right? And it's amazing what you can be. Obviously, you're like, oh, don't get to travel, but that's tiny. That's not the most important. The important thing is what could you achieve not having left your bedroom or wherever it is. It takes me back to that kind of whole idea of, you see, when you had these, I hope it's the last few years or so, like musical artists that have been able to launch amazing careers online, build amazing songs and whatnot, just from the bedroom. You talk about bedroom businesses. I mean, it is just empowering people without having to invest a lot, into their setup, their approach, their tech, just to be able to launch and be more opportunistic, right? Based on kind of what you now have access to. So, it's outside of the emotional roller coaster we all go through, it's taking advantage of what you have. As human beings, we say, we've only got what's in front of us right now. Let's just make the most of that. And it's really great to see kind of what's going to come out of that.
That actually segues beautifully into one of the questions in the comments. So pandemic aside, what's your highlight of 2020? And conversely, what's the low light?
If I called 2020 or January Q5 2020, the highlight would be the US elections. I feel like I want to squeeze that in there because
you told me we weren't allowed to talk politics.
Oh, we weren't, but I'm again breaking all the rules, mate. I feel like it's just, that for me was a big highlight because there was just a lot of disruption that happened throughout last year. One of the the lowlights for me, obviously the tragedies with George Floyd and the rest of it last year were a very, very low point. It did bring about an extra level of visibility of the challenges that people face, not just in everyday society, but in organizations, in their careers, in their growth, right? Whether they're, Black individuals that just, might get overlooked for certain positions, certain promotions. It could be Black founders that don't get access to certain funding. As much of that was a low light because it really thrust into the limelight where people just didn't realize the challenges people go through. And I lived in the States for about 3 years. I've got a lot of friends there, speak to them week on, week out. And they, that for me was one of the lowest things to go through. But, a lot of positive has come, since then.
Yeah, I think one of the things it did for me and like some of the people I was speaking to at the time as well. So, and Joe, who I do the podcast with, we were talking about it and kind of how do we react to it? And what it did is it thrust a lot of the things into consciousness for me that I didn't realize was as an issue as it was, stupidly and kind of ignorantly. So one of the things it did for me was put that in consciousness. But it was definitely a low light of the year to just see how it amplified the division across all these different lines. So like race, politics, everything that was going on in this country that I used to hold up as the pillar of everything that I aspired to, and just kind of becoming aware that everything wasn't as rosy as I kind of thought it was. And it wasn't just a big joke about Trump being the leader of that country anymore. So anyway, this is the rabbit hole we said we weren't going to go down.
True, we said we wouldn't, but I always say don't get it twisted. I mean, we do have our issues in the UK very much.
Yeah. Of course.
It's one of those things where the media is there is a lot of sensationalism that's out there, but it just again shines a light that people need to have to be able to get almost a visual of the challenges that they face, and hopefully they can be educated in how they make that feel tangible to them, and that's what we're trying to do out there.
So another question from the comments: where do you go for guidance and learning on tackling those tough transitions and considerations? Any podcasts, readings, thought leaders? Basically people wanting recommendations for who they should look at.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I have a couple of mentors in my life, right? And these are individuals that I always turn to. And I always say, if you can, find people that you really admire what they do or how they approach certain problems, certain situations, and feel free to reach out to them. Funnily enough, mentors that I have are some people that are almost peers with regards to in the kind of entrepreneurship game. They're just individuals that have not raised any money, but they're doing great stuff and love to solve problems. I actually don't listen to a lot of podcasts. Maybe once a month I listen to,
I know a great one called Humans Come First. I'll send it your way.
Please. Yeah, please. I do need to kind of, and anyone has any other recommendations, please do let me know. But other than that, I pretty much work on the mentors that are within my circle. I often do, I post some stuff on LinkedIn about, interesting things that I'm reading. So yeah, please do, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you might see some stuff pop up.
How did you, so those mentors, so I have two mentors as well. And I have a couple of people that I mentor as well. And I actually find that I learn probably almost as much from mentoring as I do as being mentored, because it helps me articulate those thoughts and kind of discuss those things as well. And that's great. But so how did you, those two mentors that I have are both in slightly different aspects of businesses, but they are almost, I would say, aspirational positions in their businesses. Like I want to grow my business in a similar way that they have, or to where they have, or kind of in the places that they have ambitions to grow. So that's how I've ended up with that mentor mix. How did you start using your mentors, find your mentors even?
Yeah, so I actually attended a few events last year, I think it was, as part of programs that I was on. That's how I got one of my mentors, who basically was on a program that put us together in a mentor mixer. So funnily enough, I was quite lucky because that kind of put us together. And weirdly enough, she was in a almost a bit like a competitor in a similar industry, but was very aspirational and knew there's a bigger picture around how we can drive programs. So bouncing ideas off of her has been fantastic. Other mentors, one of my other mentors has been one of my old, actually, I think it was almost my first boss that I had when I was in New York. Just an inspirational figure that was incredibly articulate in how they approached any problem that they were trying to solve. And, sometimes you can talk to somebody about the problem you're solving and realize as you're saying it, you're either confusing yourself because you think it's a problem and it's not quite a problem, or you can't articulate it because you're making probably more of it than it is, if that makes sense. So both of the mentors approach my challenges in different ways, which helps me balance, the kind of response that I get off it. And I'm completely like you. I also mentor a couple of people, or quite a few actually. And that is really good for me because, again, it keeps pushing myself to solve problems that I typically wouldn't be facing on a daily basis, or help them solve problems that I wouldn't be facing on a daily basis. So I do often actually, put out there that I'm open to mentoring. I did a lot when the pandemic hit last year, and I said, anybody want advice on anything, if I can help, I will. Naturally, fortunately or unfortunately, I'm a trainer at heart. So I love being able to bring people along on the journey. Sometimes it means painting a more relatable picture for them as to what their problem will be, and sort of pulling it apart for them in a visual way that they can see it, and then helping get into solutions. So yeah, I probably get more out of mentoring than I do out of being a mentee, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's interesting. It's also interesting how most people don't consider people within their close network as mentors, or couldn't imagine them to be their network and mentors. But I actually have close friends that I call up and say, just need a call. I've got a friend who we have very long conversation, but sometimes he'll quote a very sort of famous Stoic, or quotes from Stoicism, and it just drops into our conversation. We're like, when we have discussions as friends and friendship groups, we don't talk like that. When we speak to one another, all of a sudden we're talking in quotes. No idea why, because I wouldn't do normally. But there's something about looking at your close friends and actually just saying, hey, I want to bounce a couple of ideas off you. Next thing you know, they could be guiding you more than you realize they could.
So one of the things that one of my mentors got me to start doing, and I always feel stupid when I actually tell people what I'm now doing, is journaling. So now every night I'm spending 15 minutes just talking about, and basically like free writing, like thought, like just dropping thoughts, and then also writing down like what's the one thing that I'm going to achieve tomorrow, and then like forgetting everything else. If I do that one thing, I'll get that tomorrow, and that's great. Like that's fine. But actually going through the process of writing down thoughts from the day is actually helping me get it out of my head, where you can overthink things and start to really kind of like dig too deep into it, and it can drive you nuts. As soon as I write it down, I'm like, actually, that's not a problem, or actually that's easily fixed because you could just do this with it. And I can also come back to the ideas tomorrow. So that's the kind of stuff that being either a mentor or a mentoree can really help you. Just like those tidbits can help just change course. It's great.
Yeah. I've got a book that I use. You can buy some of these online. You can find these high performance journals, right? And what they do is they give you a structure. You can write out your goals for the morning and your thoughts at the end of the day. Yeah. And I do it, I'd say every day, as many days as I can, but just writing it down is such a great exercise to, you verbalize it, say it out loud while you're writing it down, and better understand what you've accomplished, better help you reflect on what you've done, better help you plan for the day moving forward. So I use one of those books. It's a big book, but it's definitely worth having. Have it by your side.
So another question in the comments: what's your work-life balance like now that you're working from home? Is it easier or more difficult to switch off?
Yeah, do you know what? I think, I don't know if you have this as well, Rich, but as a founder of a business, right? I'm not sure I know really what switching off really means. I don't think I look at it as switching on and switching off. I have to now because I've got a newborn. So there are times where I'm being told that there's something else I've got to be working on. I say working on, it's the worst way to describe looking after a kid, but that is just just the way we do it. I think, weirdly enough, working from home, I think I find it much easier to find the balance because I have a space that I work in. I'm very fortunate to have a space that I can go to, get my head down, get stuff done. I'm not one that sort of, takes my laptop around the house, plunk it on top of the kitchen table while I'm trying to make dinner and, do this and that. No, I like to have the balance between the two. So, with everything sort of flying around, with everybody needing to rethink their well-being and their balance in life, I actually think it's been easier for me to work out the distinction between the two. But as an entrepreneur, that distinction will have blurred lines inevitably.
So my view on it is that you're a founder. It's in your DNA. This is your baby. It's your lifeblood. Like you are always thinking about an element of it. And my switch on, switch off is basically about doing the drudgery and the shit bit. That's the bit I can switch off and do in work hours. But you never actually switch off. And I think I think sometimes my kids are kind of like, Daddy, put your phone down. I'm like, yeah, actually, you've called me out there. It's good. Yeah,
if that does happen, then you realize it's not. It sometimes takes somebody else to tell you that you need to kind of look at something else for a while. So yeah. But if I'm not, if I'm not working, I'm probably reading a book about work or something else. So it's when does it switch off? It's just the way the mind works. You got to keep yourself engaged.
Right, we have definitely gone on past the time. But I genuinely feel like I could keep talking to you for hours. Like I said, I'm now officially a fanboy. I'm going to get t-shirts and all sorts of stuff made. But last question I'm going to leave you with is big, and it's top line, and it's probably too big for Friday afternoon. But what's next in marketing?
Wow, what's next in marketing? Okay, there's a couple of things that are exciting me. I'm a big fan of investing in assistants, so voice assistants, the Google Homes, Alexas, that sort of thing, building chatbots. I feel there's a big space there to be able to tap into that. Obviously, there's a big privacy discussion about how you can tap into that effectively and make the most of it. But, I think there's some people doing some interesting things in the space. We are relying on our assistants a lot. More so, voice is just growing, and especially with the pandemic. So I think that's a space that people need to look quite closely. How do you build those chatbots, whether it's for small businesses, large businesses? So, doing so in a way they can give you suggestions. I think there's something in there. For me, also the e-commerce space is interesting. Shoppable content. How do we do that well? One of my first startups, or my second startup actually, was a startup called Style Tag, and we were doing purchasing through visual imagery, which was quite fun, working with some guys at an Imperial on. But I think there's still something there when we are being bombarded with content and doing it in a way. All these platforms, Instagram, Pinterest, all coming up with shoppable approaches. I think there's something there in marketing. How do we drive that without making it super annoying?
Yeah. Have you checked on the voice side, actually, have you checked out Voice Flow? So it's a visual builder for Alexa, basically. So you can build apps, and it's like a visual builder that you can connect stuff in. Super easy, fun to play with.
I'll definitely check it out. No, I think that's really cool. Again, it's a big space. We're all relying on them a lot more. Yeah. Makes us feel like we're lazier, but we're not. It's just the fact that they're there.
Alex in the comments has actually said, so his tips for what's next in marketing is partnerships and going to market with alliances, which I definitely agree with. We build our businesses on partnerships. So Gori, thanks for being up for doing the 6 sessions for me. I really enjoyed that. If anybody wants to follow up with you, how do you want people to connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, so please feel free to reach out. Gori Yahaya, you'll find me on there. There's not many of us around there, so that's perfect. Just reach out. And otherwise, I'm also on Twitter, Gori Digital, or just through the UpSkill website. You'll find me somehow. That's typically how it works. But mate, real pleasure to be on here with you. It's good to have these Friday afternoon chats.
And last but not least, any parting wisdom you want to share with the group?
Parting wisdom. You make me feel like I want to pick up one of these quotes that I was saying.
Quotes are fine. We've yet to be quoted, so it's good.
I think this is a Marcus Aurelius quote. What is it he said? I think it's happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts.
Nice.
And the reason I like that particular quote is because we are bombarded with all kinds of thoughts, heavily weighted, some light touch, some very distracting. In this current time of lockdown, it's just you and your thoughts, right? So think about the quality of these and how do you ensure that they don't put you down, and work out how they really affect you and what can you do with them, right? So you may be swimming in useless thoughts half the time. Most of us often are. So, if you feel there's something that you really want to talk about, pick up the phone to a friend, have a discussion, talk them through, and try to focus on the thoughts that are there to solve problems and build solutions. That's kind of how I take it. So yeah, that's my parting wisdom.
I like it. It's nice. It's good. I like it. So thanks for joining, everybody. And next week we have Annabelle Venner joining us. So hopefully see you all next week. Thanks again, Gori.
Thanks. Have a good weekend. Take care.